Those decisions can be final in some circumstances, not always, can be final unless the council asserts jurisdiction over the issue. That's what this 245 thing is about. If the council asserts jurisdiction, it essentially stands in the shoes of the commission, replaces the action of the commission with its own action. And it can be controversial, as obviously is the case with Bob and Pat's question, because I'm supposing that the origins of the question have to do with concerns that the council is asserting jurisdiction in situations where they would prefer the outcome of the planning commission, for example, were to hold rather than the council doing it, right? So that's what the question is about. And the question is, what do I do about that? So I provide, the role of the city attorney is different from my role when I represented you as a legislator or a policymaker on the council. My job is several in this role. First, my job is to provide advice to the commissions and to the council regarding underlying, in this case, land use issues, and also regarding how the rules work. So that's part of my job. My job, if the question was, what happens if the city gets sued? My job then is to defend the action of the city. Ideally, in the first instance, we're involved enough in a situation to provide counsel that prevents something that otherwise wouldn't be lawful from happening. But we can't always be there to do that. Sometimes we're not asked to, we're not aware of it, whatever, and then controversies arise. The city attorney, part of the question was, and I'll translate it, was, can the city attorney get after the city council if it asserts jurisdiction over a planning commission matter? And the answer is, that's not a role that I can play. I'm not allowed to play that role. In that setting, the municipal corporation of the city is my client, and in that setting, the council, acting on behalf of the city, becomes my client. And so I can't take, if there's a suggestion, can I take punitive action? Can I do something aggressive about someone who's asserting jurisdiction in a way that I don't like? No, I can't do that. So the rules would be, I defend the city if it's sued in those settings. I advise the city in advance, ideally fending off inappropriate assertions of jurisdiction. And ultimately, and this is, I think, the way the world of politics works in the city, if folks don't like the way the council is asserting jurisdiction in those settings, then folks should vote for other council members. That's pretty much the way the rules of the road work. Yes?
Okay. The next question is on DWP. Jay Weitzler asked the question. Charles Baker, your question was kind of already answered on the subject of the lawsuit, but you can, are you here, Charles? Okay, thank you. And Jay's right over there. Jay's question is, each year, LADWP contributes a large amount of money to the city general fund. This is clearly a hidden tax on us. What is the justification for them to charge so much for their services just to be able to do this, particularly in light of their pending request for a 25% increase in the next few years?
Okay, good. So on that question, I'll talk about the lawsuit a little bit more in 1 second, and then I'll talk about this question. So as far as the lawsuit is concerned, just to be clear about it, here's what's going on in the lawsuit regarding the trust. The controller asked our office for an opinion. Does he have the authority to audit these two trusts? We gave an opinion that the answer was yes. It's a published opinion, so I can say that. The controller then sought to obtain, by subpoenaing appearance and documents from the trustees, who are water and power staff and union leaders, information. And the union side of these trusts, it's 4-4, union and management, chose not to do that. They instead filed a motion that I'll paraphrase. It's a motion that says, these subpoenas don't count, we're not going to honor them. We have defended the controller's right to issue those subpoenas, and a court was going to decide on, well, yesterday, whether the union was right or we were right. And the court postponed that hearing and hasn't set a new date as of this moment for that hearing. But we are going to be, we can talk, I don't know if you want to talk more about the detail, I gather you don't. But in short, our view is the city charter and city code, the administrative code, gives the controller the authority to dig into this matter. My own view is that transparency is a big deal. It's your money. Our view is that these dollars were ratepayer dollars when they were paid, and they remain ratepayer dollars until they're expended for the purposes of these trusts, which are training and safety. Controller should have access to that. If there's nothing there that's wrong, let's move on to a different issue. They should have access. Now, as far as the DWP allocation to city government, the justification over the years for that has been this, that it's a publicly owned utility, and this is essentially a dividend, which otherwise would go to shareholders, but instead it goes back into the city's general fund to pay for basic city services. That's the core theory. Next.
Al Friedman? Al? Al, you here? Go on to the next one. Okay. Jules? Jules, you here?
Where did Jules go? Oh.
Please explain the regulations from the Department of Finance granting tax registration certificates to pot dispensing operating illegally.
Good, okay. So first, because Jules was a volunteer of mine 17 years ago, and because he's the honorary mayor, I know that because I have a card that says so. I will answer your question, but only for those reasons. Otherwise, I would not answer the question. So can we just spend maybe, because I think people care about it, maybe 3 minutes on medical marijuana generally, and then about the business tax? Let's just do that for a second. So on the day I was elected, you voted for a measure called Prop D. And I think when you did it, you had in mind the following balance: that people who are sick with cancer or something else serious and who are in pain should have access to medical marijuana if they wish to alleviate their suffering. But you also said, I believe, there's a balance to be struck here. There are too many dispensaries. They're too close to sensitive sites like schools and playgrounds. They're too close to each other. And we need a new law to deal with that imbalance. What most people don't know is that when you voted for Prop D, you voted for an ordinance that says there is no such thing as a lawful medical marijuana dispensary. No such thing. But such a business can get what's called limited immunity from prosecution by me. No immunity from the state or the feds, but from me, if the business achieves certain standards. It has to have been registered in 2007 and 11, it has to pay business tax, and then it has to meet a whole bunch of other standards, like it can't be too close to a school. So in the summertime, the city issued a list. The list noted 134 dispensaries that have paid business tax and were registered in 2007 and 11. That does not mean that those dispensaries are immune from prosecution. All it means is that they've satisfied some of the criteria. What have we done in our office? We took office, we were communicating actively with all the dispensaries, with their owners and the property owners of the space where they're leasing. We are prosecuting criminally. We're moving in civil court. We're forging teamwork, collaborations with the police department and the Southland Realtors recently. And here's what's going on. 100, more than 100 have closed. We're prosecuting nearly 300 owners and operators and managers. 24 times dispensaries have gone to civil or criminal court alleging that Prop D is unlawful or unconstitutional or shouldn't be applied to them. And 24 times, they're often 200-page documents, we've won every single time. Those are the metrics. We're on the right track. We had a press conference last week with the Southland Realtors, because my view, like in the dumping of patients on Skid Row with the hospitals, is better that we educate people than expend your resources prosecuting them. So we're working with the realtors to make sure they understand the rules, so they are not helping to locate new dispensaries against the law. And they're very interested in working with us. Because you see, we are prosecuting not just the operators of the dispensaries, but the people who own the property, the folks from whom they are leasing, who are not used to being defendants in criminal proceedings, because we mean business about this. I do not want to take away basic access to medical marijuana from people. I do want to be sure that hundreds of dispensaries that aren't lawfully located are shut down. So Jules asked the following question. It requires a little background. The city has a Department of Finance. It is responsible for issuing a registration form if a business pays business tax. The form says on its face, my words, not the form's, this is not saying that you're here lawfully. All this is a document that shows that you are paying business tax. Some of the recipients of those registration certificates may not be lawful medical marijuana dispensaries. Jules' question is, why are they getting the form if it may prove later on that they're not lawful? And the answer is the division of labor in the city, basically. The finance department does its thing, is in charge of collecting taxes. My job is to enforce the law. So for example, for business tax certificate recipients, we are sending a letter to them if they're new that says, hey, if you just are opening for the first time and you have the certificate, because we have this little record of you doing that, you can't do that. And you should know that unless you shut down, we are going to take action against you. So that's how it works.
Okay. We've got a council member for a short amount of time, so this is going to be...
Or the city attorney.
I'm sorry.
Whoever I am. I can't keep a job, but I understand.
So this is going to be the lightning round, which means that you got to answer the questions a little shorter.
Got it.
Bill Birdcow? Bill, you here? You just went to the bathroom? Okay. So since we were on marijuana pot clinics, this next question is from Bill.
We were not on marijuana, Matt. Maybe you were.
Why is it so difficult to get reimbursed for pothole damage? Got it? Potholes?
I got it. Keep your day job, man. So it's actually, did you see the NBC report on this? Who saw the NBC report on potholes? Anybody see that? Joel Grover, you so angry about that? All right, so Matt's question, Joe's question, assumes facts that are not true, actually. So when I took office, one of the aspects of my job that I didn't know much about was the fact the city attorney administers the claims process in the city. A city tree falls on your house, you're concerned about it, you file a claim with the city. Your car runs over a pothole, you're angry about it, the axle's messed up, you file a claim with the city. So we have all these claims, many, many claims. And it's not something you talk about during a campaign, right? So I get to the office, and Joel Grover for NBC News comes to me and says, you've been in office for a couple months, but for a year, NBC has been doing with KPCC an investigation into the manner in which the city pays or doesn't pay pothole claims. And we're here to tell you, does a lousy job. I'm going to paraphrase, that's what Joel said. And he had me on camera, I think in September, and I said, we're going to fix this. And afterwards, he said to me, so when should I come back? And I said, come back in a couple months. He told Rob, why did he say a couple months? That's so quick. That he was back in a couple months. And we fixed it. So when I took office, I'm forgetting the numbers, but more or less, we were denying about 80% of the claims. But I think many of those denials weren't the result of the kind of analysis that's fair to you. Now, since that story, we fixed things. Now we are paying about 80% of the claims. So it's actually not particularly hard, but you have to have facts that justify, because otherwise, if you don't have the facts, we're giving away taxpayer money, right? So that's the balance to be struck, but we have fixed the system so that it's fair.
Hey, like that for a short answer.
Did anybody know the background? Who knows the
Wilma, are you here? Wilma's back over here. Speaking of potholes and cars,
yeah.
Why did you recommend that taxpayers foot the bill for Councilman Weezar's accident? Why doesn't he carry his own insurance? $175,000 would buy 2 Teslas.
It would. It's true. So, again, short answers, I'll give you the shortest answer I can give you. When a city employee, including a council member, drives a city car, which he's entitled to drive, and that car gets in an accident, the city is self-insured. We don't carry an insurance policy. The city is self-insured for all kinds of stuff. For everything I mentioned before, by the way, those pothole claims, self-insured. So when there's an accident, as in that case, and somebody suffered some meaningful damage. There were about $65,000 of just medical bills associated with the back injuries that the individual suffered. So just for what it's worth, the settlement was well within what's an appropriate settlement in a circumstance when someone incurs tens of thousands of dollars of medical bills. Next.
Okay. Don Bostrom? Okay. This is the hardest ball question. This is a tough question for you.
Yeah.
Can you explain the new state law on raffles and whether SOHA can qualify to conduct a raffle?
No.
Okay.
To be clear, I can't explain the law. I don't know if it applies to you. I don't know.
Are we out of time or are you?
I have time for one more question. That's go to my next. I have one more event like this tonight. So.
What is the city doing about identity theft? It's happened to this gentleman twice in the last 5 months.
Okay, you should keep that person anonymous, by the way. The city doesn't have. Here's the thing: identity theft is a real issue, and in our office and the police department both, there are some efforts to try to help on identity theft issues, but they're not as well developed as they could be, I think. And one thing I'm going to do, and I don't know when, but soon, is take a step that helps a lot, and that is to educate the community. When I was a member of the State Assembly just a couple years ago in Sherman Oaks, I did a seminar for senior citizens about how to avoid being the victims of scams, including identity theft. And for today, let me say, I want to do that again for a broader audience this time, as taking a step toward trying to prevent the problem from rising in the first place. So listen, thank you very, very much for having me, as always. I appreciate it. And I really, it's been more than a year since I was, maybe 10 months. Since I was allowed to be here. So ask Richard if he'll allow me back more frequently, because I typically come for the food, but I stay for the questions.
Thank you very much. And please, everyone, please clean up. See you Wednesday, next month.